live, sweetheart.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf show. And I'm here, of course, with my hardworking assistant and co-host of the program, LPGA professional Cindy Miller. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me just say to those tuning into the show this morning that Cindy's on the road on her way back home from through Pennsylvania, I believe. She's maybe some moments that we may lose her from time to time, but we'll do our best. We got another great show for you this morning, though. Cindy's bringing part 9 of the Own Your Game series. We're going to talk about being tough-minded and what's all that about. And a little bit later in the show, we're going to be joined by our special guest, Pam-Swenson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Executive Women's Golf Association, a very large, very prominent golf association here in the United States. And we're going to be talking to her about some of the things that she's doing to help bring more women into the game of golf. But just to remind you very quickly before we get started with Cindy, I'll get worried Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on blogtalkradio.com. Quickest way to get to us is go to the blog.com website and type in the search key Women of Golf, and you'll get right to our show every Tuesday morning. And also, if you've missed any of the previous shows, I strongly suggest that you go in there, visit the link, and scroll down through the on-demand section. You can visit any of the shows that you might have missed. And this has been a great series that Cindy's been bringing to the show, so you want to make sure that you listen to all the components of it so that it'll make a little bit more sense for you. But don't forget, you can do that at any time while you're traveling. It's a great way to do that. If you're on a little road trip, let's say, as on this week, great way to catch up on any episodes that you might have missed. But we're with you this morning, so we're glad that you're joining us. And don't forget, you can also call in anytime at area code 347-945-5855. And you can email the show if you have any comments or questions at womenofgolf@gmail.com. And you can also email Cindy if you want more information from her directly. You can go to cindymillergolf.com, or you can email her at cindy@cindymillergolf.com. All right, Cindy, let's jump right into it, and let's talk about being tough-minded.
Well, to define what tough-minded is, it's your ability to maintain a self-reliant, there's a lot of big words here, so be prepared, non-sensitive,
Yep.
completely realistic, and a rational attitude during competition. In other words, no going off the deep end. Your mother, father, sister, brother, your spouse may call this being cold and selfish. So you have the ability to be very non-sensitive and realistic and rational, to make good decisions while you're out playing. Again, your family might call this cold and selfish when you're at home. But on the course, fans or commentators or your friends or playing partners might say you have nerves of steel, that you're a tough competitor, and that you're great under pressure. So, you have the ability to produce while there's a gun pointed at your head and you are holding the trigger. That's what the question is.
Right. Now, what on a scale, is there a way that you sort of would measure a competitor on a scale? What would be considered to be somebody that sort of fits in this mold? And
Well, there's a scale of 1 to 10. again, if you're interested in taking the Golf Strike assessment, email me at cindy@cindymillergolf.com, and you can take this assessment and get a full report on where you fit in on all of these components of being, the 8 traits of great champions. It's from Golf Strike. The scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, very unsentimental and selfish and harsh, and 10 being very sensitive and caring, intuitive, caring, where most ideal competitors, champions rank is between 3 and 4 on the scale of 1 to 10. So 1 would be a real creep, and 10 would be too nice and sensitive and caring and not tough enough. And that's, other traits that might interfere with this tough-mindedness might include emotional instability. Well, maybe you're not emotionally stable enough to be able to be tough-minded.
Right.
Or you're under extreme tension, or you have very low self-esteem.
Now, obviously, you need to be tough-minded when you're playing, especially when you're playing in a tournament, because there's so many outside distractions. And we've talked about in the past about how to sort of keep your focus and having a more narrow focus when you're in play, and then widening that focus, of course, in between shots and when you're sort of walking along the fairway and getting ready for the next thing. But what are there some things that people can do, in order to help make themselves a little more tough-minded?
Well, there is, but let me explain a little bit more about the champions. They scored between a 3 and a 4 on the scale, and they're always above average in their ability to be tough-minded, because they have to be able to shift states and turn things on and turn things off. And as you said, narrow and widen their focus. Champion golfers, they've learned to maximize their tough-mindedness for peak performance while on the course, and to minimize the tough-mindedness for maintaining quality personal relationships. So they may be perceived as a tough competitor on the course, but yet they're friends with everybody. So the person I think of mostly is Suzanne Pedersen. I mean, when I watch Suzanne Pedersen play, she is out there to win no matter what. But I see that she does have friends on and off the course. Another tough-minded competitor would be Christy Kerr. I mean, she would,
Right.
Yeah, she is out there to win, without a doubt. She can totally narrow her focus. That's all she's concerned with. On the other hand, I don't know Christy, so I can't say anything, but I have heard that she might have a little difficulty with personal relationships. She might stay too driven and dominant throughout, instead of easing it up and taking it short go. So you want to be able to be a little
and sometimes, sometimes when you're watching some of the players, on television, don't confuse. I think what you have to be careful of is that people don't confuse, being necessarily focused with being tough-minded, because it's really an entirely different thing. There's a lot of players out there, obviously they're focusing on the shots at hand and they're focusing on the tournament. But some people, obviously, the sort of cream rises to the top. The true champions are the ones that are really more tough-minded, I think, than some of the other players. And that's not to be meant as a criticism, but don't always, I think, confuse somebody that may be focused on a particular shot as necessarily being tough-minded, because that's something I think that's a little more unique. Would you agree with that?
I would tend to agree with that. On the other hand, Mo Martin is one of the nicest people I've ever met, and a lot of the Twitter comments after she won the British Open this weekend were that she is one of the nicest people ever, but she's, you have to be able to turn it on and turn it off. I think she lost her little focus and concentration, and they're thinking about the outcome on Saturday when she went bogey, double, bogey, 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 or whatever it was, but she had a little bit of a meltdown in the middle of a round, but she was able to come back from that and focus and stay on task in the present moment, and then, made a great shot on 18, almost made a double eagle, and made it for birdie to win. Again, it's the ability to turn it on and turn it off and shift state. The champions in this sport, they have the remarkable ability to stay tough-minded under adversity and using potential distractions as cues for more determined focus and concentration. They would frequently birdie after a bogey or play better with pain or injury, or even focus better under adverse conditions. They have a great ability to prevent outside events, controversy, or playing partners from affecting their play. And they're way above average in the ability to do that. They seldom ever let their emotions or level of arousal change in response to the events outside of their control. So they can also be very selfish when it's in the best interest of their game, and they approach their rounds rationally and logically. That has nothing to do with me. Put it over here, flush it. I've got to do what I got to do. And so they stay focused on the last thing.
A good example on the men's side, of course, was back a few years ago in the U.S. Open when Tiger Woods was playing, and especially when he got into the playoff against Rocco Mediate. He obviously was playing with injury through that better part of that tournament before he hit, of course, with his knee. Obviously, it requires a lot of somebody with a tough mind to be able to play through that much pain. It was very evident watching him swing and walk around and really hobble around that course through, better part of 4 rounds. There's probably, in recent times, probably one of the best examples that I can think of somebody being tough-minded to be able to play through that kind of pain and then to go on and win the tournament.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And that would also have to do with his personality, which I had mentioned that there will be an opportunity for our listeners to take an assessment, and that should be ready by next week. If you're interested to find out exactly, where you fit in the personality behavior styles. But Tiger Woods is definitely a driven, domineering D personality on the disc scale. And so that would make him a little bit more prone to be tough-minded because his mission is to win. They are very competitive. They're very urgent. They're on a mission to win. And so was Christy Kerr and Suzanne Pedersen. So there's definitely a correlation with behavior style and being tough-minded. On the other hand, an S personality like Jason Dustner, Freddie Couples, BJ Singh, more of a nice person, if you would, they have a little more struggle to be tough-minded. That doesn't mean they don't want to win.
Right.
But they may tend to be a little more less selfish, if you will. Yeah, and
in that mix, Freddie Couples is probably again one of the best examples I can think. I mean, a lot of people. I remember earlier on in his career, because he had such a laid-back personality, a lot of people wondered if he was just taking a stroll around the 18 holes or if he was actually playing in the tournament, because he just looked so relaxed and just really didn't seem like he was focused. I mean, obviously he had to focus on shots, but he just was like he was taking a stroll in the park, and he was actually criticized for that earlier on in his career, especially before he won his 92 Masters. He was really highly criticized for that because people didn't think he was taking the game seriously. But that's just the style that he plays with. And it's
absolutely. And my husband Alan has the same personality style, and he was playing in Japan one time, and they criticized him for acting like he didn't care.
Right.
But that's absolutely not the case. But the outward body language might be that, I'm just not that driven. Whereas, you can absolutely discern the difference of people if you just go watch 3 or 4 or 5 different players. Christina Kim is definitely a high eye, without a doubt. Always twittering, has the loudest golf bag ever, so friendly, talkative, talks to everybody. but she's going to also have to learn to narrow the focus, which she does when she's competing.
Right. Are there some recommendations that you might have that that we can share with the listeners that would help to, maybe deal with being tough-minded?
Yeah, definitely. To be a competitive golfer requires that you effectively, use your tough-mindedness for competition, especially if you play professionally, because you have to be able to turn it on and turn it off. It requires that you exercise your tough-mindedness in ways that maximize your competitiveness for golf. And you've also got to be able to temper your tough-mindedness to ensure that you maintain a quality, balanced personal life away from golf. So for golf,
right,
you might want to take a selfish approach towards competition, and that, you put aside sensitivities and concerns for others while playing. Like, all right, so the next 4 hours, it's all about me. I'll be nice to everybody, but I'm here for business. So it doesn't matter to me if you're playing in a league, you're playing in your club championship, or you're playing in the British Open. You have to be able to focus on what you're doing if you care about the outcome. When you must say no to others, without worrying about their feelings, to ensure you get quality time for your practice and play. It's a boundary issue. I'm really, I just found out that I got into the Legends Tour Open Championship at Frenchwick, Indiana, and second week of August. So now it's like, okay, it's time to put the pedal to the metal, so you need to practice. So I may go to my range where I teach and go over by myself on the side to hit balls, because that's kind of saying, I'm in my office right now, and the door's closed.
Yep.
Don't talk to me. I'm busy working on my game, because it's very important to me that I play well, and I've got some things I need to work on. So, you got to get a little tougher and make some better boundaries. You may want to detach from playing partners so that you're unfazed by possible slow play, gamesmanship, emotions, or their poor play. Don't get wrapped up in their junk. It's got nothing to do with you, and stay focused on you.
Right, and that's so important, because really to play, and again, it doesn't matter. I know a lot of this really does pertain, for those playing at a professional level, but it can also be applied, as you indicated here a moment ago. Whether you're playing in your club championship or maybe you're playing in a corporate event, you certainly want to give your best effort, and obviously, the number one thing is you want to have fun and enjoy it, because it is a game, and we want to, have fun out there as well. But you have to, adopt some of these skills and traits, if you will, in order to play better, because you have to be a little bit selfish when you're in the moment. Now, afterwards, when the round's over, and then you can kind of be yourself and let your guard down a little bit more. But when you're in the zone, if you will, you have to be a little bit selfish. Otherwise, you're just not going to perform well.
Right, and the other thing is, being tough-minded. If you're really tough-minded, if you're on a scale towards the one, you may have a tendency to be oblivious, to the sensitivities and personal needs of others. So this can make, relationships very difficult, leaving you somewhat distant, from your spouse or children or close friends. If your personal relationships are strained, distance is fragile, you might need to take a chill pill with your tough-mindedness and be aware that you might be a little bit too tough. And you got to become a little more tender-minded off the course.
Yeah, and you have to know when to turn it on and off, is really what you're saying. I mean, when you're on the course and you're in the hunt, if you will, you have to stay focused and at the task at hand. But then you have to. It's really, and we've talked about this a few times. Excuse me. About really how golf really mimics life. People that go to work every day, they get in their work mode. They're thinking about the tasks of the day that have to be done, and maybe have set goals for the day or a week or what have you. But they have to learn to turn that off when they come home and spend time with their family. And unfortunately, some people don't do that very effectively, and that's where you obviously come into some issues. But so you have to really find a balance and some of the things that Cindy and I are talking about here, you know, are important to play better golf, but it's also something that can be used in your everyday life as well.
Yeah, the same thing with being tough-minded at work, you know, being able to focus and shift states and change, you know, from meeting to meeting, turning it on, turning it off, sometimes taking like a 30-second break. Maybe you just need to sit back and chill and breathe a little bit, go on a mental vacation. When you hear the chatter going crazy in your head, just say, all right, that's enough. I think the number one step is to become aware. And if nothing else, hopefully this series will help people become a little more aware of their thought control, their emotional stability, how tough-minded are they? Are they able to focus and narrow it and widen it, shift states and all of that? Because this game of golf, you know, as much as it's a physical motion, it's also a mental task to be able to manage your mind and your thoughts. So that's kind of why this is so important to me and why I wanted to share it with our listeners. The third thing that you might want to do is... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, go ahead.
You have to learn a little bit of empathy. So you might find it helpful to practice being empathetic with those close to you. I feel you, you know. I understand where you're coming from. I can relate to what you're feeling and involves occasionally trying to put yourself in their place, put yourself in their shoes, attempt to truly see and experience their position from their point of view. Not everybody's like you, although some of us would like to think that it would be a better world if everybody was like them, but that's not the case because you need balance. And a simple exercise in empathy might be trying to repeat back in your words what you feel someone's trying to say to you before you actually respond to them. You know, this is what I hear, is this what you mean? Type of thing. And it will help communication. Those close to you might really appreciate your efforts in doing so.
Yeah, and you know, Cindy, this is something that this one here really resonates, I think, with men. Men have a terrible time with this one right here, and I'll give you an example. You know, this is probably one of the biggest criticisms that women have with men is men inherently, obviously, have a need to fix things. So, you know, we'll certainly listen, but in our mind, quite often what we're doing is we're already trying to find a solution for the problem instead of just listening and being somewhat empathetic. And I think that's probably that, you know, something that the men in their golf game could be a little bit more empathetic, if you will, and obviously in life in general. But that's something that you hear quite often in relationships is the lack of you know, in communication, of not really understanding what it is the other person's trying to say. And sometimes they don't always want you necessarily to fix it. They just want to be heard. And that happens quite a bit. So that's something that really, for you guys listening, that you really need to pay attention to.
Exactly. That's what Karen Fleisch's Jensen was talking about last week. You know, they immediately have the fix for you. And I didn't ask you to fix. I asked you to listen.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things that you might want to do is say, you know, I understand what you're saying. Are you looking for a solution, or did you just want to vent? I do that with my son a lot, and it's funny. It's trick. It's the exact opposite, because he'll be talking to me, and I'll give him a solution. He said, I don't want a solution. I'm just venting to you because you're my mother. I'm like, oh, okay, then I'll shut up and listen. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard those words myself a few times from Carol, my girlfriend. But you know, but that's true. And a lot of people don't understand. Well, what does that got to do with golf? It's extremely important because you have to sometimes, especially in the instructional side. You know, obviously we're there to help people with their games and to make it a more enjoyable experience. But the number one thing that I believe that really makes a good teacher or coach or what, you know, swing guru or whatever you want to label yourself as, is you have to be a very good listener. You have to listen to what the client really wants and what their concerns, what their fears are out in the golf course before you can really do anything to help them. And I think a lot of times and it's certainly not everybody. I think it's just human nature. You know, we've acquired experience over the years as teachers and coaches, and we want to instill that knowledge onto our students. But sometimes some of the information we may be giving them is not what they really need or what they're really looking for. And this adds to some of the frustration. So this is a great tip as well for coaches and teachers out there is, you know, have a little empathy. Listen to what your students are saying, what it is that they're, you know, they may not really want to hit the drive 300 yards. They may just want to be able to do other things. And so we need to really make sure that we listen first and understand what their needs are before we react, you know, with our solutions or offerings.
Exactly. I was doing a clinic the other day for a bunch of women from the American Express, and this one woman said, you know, I went to the clinic last week, and then the Golf Channel sent me a tape, and the guy told me I need to stop letting my elbow fly. And I said, well, what would you like the ball to do? Well, no, I need to stop this in my swing. I said, well, no, stop. Tell me what you want the end result to be. So my fear is that so many golf instructors tell people what they're doing wrong, and they don't give them the solution to hit the ball better. So I said to her, do you really care what your right elbow does if you hit the ball super? And she had to think about it, and she goes, well, no, I guess I don't. I go, well, yeah, let's just help you hit the ball better. Oh. And I said, worry about it? She said, no, stop thinking about what you're doing wrong, and let's think about how to do it right. You know, so again, yes, we need to be empathetic with our students, but we also need to be empathetic with our spouses and our family and our friends, and we need to learn to be able to turn it on and turn it off. So there's the fourth step here is personal balance. You know, set some goals in the area of personal balance is very important to yourself, your well-being, and your golf game. In the long term, you know, good personal balance will maximize your tough-mindedness for competition and also provide you with long-term stability in your personal life. So, you know, every time I read through this stuff, it helps me as well to remind me, you know, these are the skills that you need to learn to become the best player, person, teacher that you can possibly be. And you have to be willing to look in the mirror and maybe see some weaknesses that, you know, I tend to be a little bit too tough-minded, and I need to take a chill pill and be a little more empathetic and be able to turn it on and turn it off.
Right. You know, something, Cindy, that, you know, I've often thought about over you know, the last several years, and I think this is something that would, and I'm talking on the teaching end of things, as opposed to the playing. But, you know, I think there's been too much emphasis in the last decade or so, particularly, maybe even 2 decades, of sort of developing that picture-perfect swing. And I think it's sort of been, it's not only started with, you know, from within the industry, but it's now been ingrained in the average person. And just sort of alluding to what you were talking to a minute ago, you know, there's a lot of people out there that they want to make sure that their swing just looks perfect, but it may not be yielding the results that they need, but as long as the swing looks okay. So there's been a lot of emphasis on you know, having everything look perfect, but may not necessarily be addressing some of the key issues that you know, the players facing. So you're right in what you say. I mean, let's find out first off what the problem is, and let's find a solution to that problem. And forget about whether or not your, as you said, your elbow or your arm or your foot's, you know, pointing the right way or what have you, because there's a lot of, history shows there's a lot of players out there over the years who didn't have necessarily a picture-perfect swing, but were very effective players. They were able to make happen what they needed to make happen, and yet they didn't have what you would have the Iron Byron swing. So you're exactly right in what you said. You need to. These tools are going to help you. Really work from the inside, and that's what really is going to make a better player, is what's going on the inside. The outside is really actually very easy to fix. The inside's not always so easy.
Correct. And you have to be willing to look inside to see where the weaknesses might lay, and then you can then develop a plan to fix them.
Excellent. Well, what a great way to end the segment, Cindy. What a great a great part of the Own Your Game series that Cindy's been bringing us here, and I see that Pam is ready here to come on the show, so we should bring her on. And let me just I'll introduce her here if you don't mind, Cindy, since you're on the road. Our guest, of course, that we've had on this morning is Pam-Swenson. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Executive Women's Golf Association. She essentially really is the face of the EWGA in the golf industry, and the EWGA, is really a trend-setting organization which enables current and aspiring business and professional women to learn, connect, and play, all while using golf as really a tool, and using the power of its really vast membership, over 14,000 members across the United States and around the world, and their $66 million impact on the game. They've got quite a purse, if you will, that they're bringing to the game, and they're looking at really to create some new and exciting opportunities for its members, and certainly want to welcome some new ones. So without any further hesitation, let's bring Pam on. Good morning, Pam. Welcome to the Women of Golf.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
We're doing great. We're excited we're excited to have you on, and I know you had some things happen in your personal life a little while ago. We were going to have you on about a month ago, but we're glad that you're able to join us today, and we're looking forward to talking to you a little bit about the EWGA. And so just to sort of bring everybody up to speed, most people know what it is, but just maybe give us a little bit of an overview of the EWGA.
Sure. Well, the EWGA is a network of women, a group of women who connect to the game of golf. We've been around for 23 years, and we've had over 100,000 women that have come through, if you will, the gates of the EWGA to either learn the game or get better at it, find friends to play with, and compete in our national championship, or just use it for just the pure pleasure of the game.
Yeah, and it's a growing thing, and you have I believe, if I remember correctly, you have, I think, 125 chapters.
In the United States, we have 4 in Canada, and we also have a presence in Bermuda, South Africa, if you can believe it, outside of Verona, Italy, and also outside of Dublin now.
Wow. That's so awesome. I remember when you started, I was the honorary chapter chairman of the Buffalo chapter. Wow. That's amazing.
It is really amazing. Yeah. And, you know, we've got members like myself that have been around for a really long time, and then we have a lot of new professional women who are, you know, climbing that corporate ladder and really want to find out ways to open doors so that they can be successful in their career, and EWGA really offers that springboard for them. And I am a true believer that women need to have golf as a skill set on their resume. Just like you learn how to do Excel spreadsheets, you need to know how to play golf because it's a door opener and a career starter, really.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it gives such access to people if you know how to use the game of golf as a business tool. Tell us some of the things that you do to help women learn how to play.
Sure, Cindy. Well, we have, as Ted said, 125 chapters around the United States, and each chapter is run by a core group of wonderful women who really volunteer their time because they have a true passion for the game and want to introduce other women to the game. So what we have found through the years is people, may not have other friends or acquaintances that they can play with, so the EWGA offers organized, convenient golf in cities all across the country so that you can meet other women and know on a Saturday morning or a Wednesday evening league that if you come at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, you have people to play with. Or let's say you don't know how to play. Our local chapters have a great calendar of educational opportunities so that you can test the waters and get your feet wet and feel confident, you know, in building your golf skill sets. We work with LPGA teaching professionals and PGA professionals and organize golf education programs for you. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop because if you join an EWGA local chapter, then there's a lot of different activities depending on what your interests are that you can engage in.
What are, Pam, if I might ask, you know, one of the points that we just talked about a moment ago was about really using this as an effective tool, much like you would, as you said, Excel and so forth. Obviously, this is something that men have done for many, many years because it has predominantly been a dominant sport by men for such a long time. But obviously, as time goes on, more and more women are getting introduced to the game. But there's still a lot of women out there that are a little bit apprehensive and shy. What are some things that your organization across the United States and now, of course, abroad are doing to help encourage to get more women and open that door? What are some of the things that you're doing and some things that you would like to see happen?
Well, I think one of the things that, when many years ago, it was out of a business necessity. I didn't grow up in a golf household, and I really didn't know the nuances of the game, but I knew that in the corporate setting that I was employed in, I was missing out on things. But I needed to feel comfortable because obviously you don't want to put yourself in an embarrassing situation. And, as women, we want to know, all the little nuances, all the little tools, all the little tricks so that we feel comfortable and don't embarrass ourselves. So the EWGA really offered that as a nurturing background for me. So when you join a chapter, there's women around you that you can ask questions about, you can feel comfortable with. We run a series of webinars online where I bring in industry leaders and share nuggets of information. How did they become successful in their own career passions? And one of the things that I'm really proud of that we did this year is we actually produced a book, and it's called Teeing Up for Success, and it's stories of EWG members on how they've used golf to further their careers. And there's life lessons in there, and there's tips, and, it's very, I don't know, I love the EWGA. I've been a member since 1994, and I truly believe in how we can connect women to learn, play, and enjoy the game of golf for business and for fun. But you have to get started someplace. So if that safe haven is a local group, in Rochester, New York, or Boise, Idaho, or Orlando, Florida, with women that, want to embrace you and help you feel better, we've been doing it for 23 years, and we can really take a beginner golfer and get them caught on that bug and get that passion ignited, for them to get into the game. That's what we do best in a community of women.
Right, and I think that once, I can speak for myself. I played from a very early age, and I know once the bug bit me, it was, a lifelong, ambition of mine to play golf, and I enjoy it, and of course I teach golf. And this is something that I know as more and more women become involved with, they're going to feel the same way. And something that was very exciting last week, I don't know if you had an opportunity to tune in at all, but we had a very special guest, Karen Palacios Jansen, who was on the program, who's very big in golf. And she mentioned something that I wasn't aware of, something that's new. It's coming out here in a few weeks. I'm certainly very excited about. But the LPGA is coming out with a new teaching program called Teaching Her. And it's really a certification program that's going to be geared to helping instructors learn how to teach to women, because men and women are different, and not just physically, but they learn differently and have different styles and different ways of absorbing things. And the industry, again, as I said earlier, has predominantly been geared towards men. So I'm very excited the fact that the LPGA is stepping up and coming out with a program that's going to be really more geared specific on helping women not only get into the game, but helping the instructors that are already in the game be able to work better effectively with women. And I think it's a worthwhile venture. I'm glad. It's about time that something like that happens. And I know
she really has spearheaded. She's spearheaded that effort. And, she's also been an incredible supporter of the EWGA. She has a chapter in the book, Teeing Up for Success, as well. And I think that, so much has been written about participation levels in the game of golf and where is golf headed and, new different types of playing formats. And, years ago when you talked about a 9-hole round of golf, people looked at you and said, oh, my gosh, that isn't really golf. And today it's an accepted format. I mean, and some of us that are so busy would love to see 3 holes and 6 holes or 5 holes embraced. And there are some places where you can, pay as you go for how many holes that you play. And I think that as an industry, and I sit on a lot of different different industry committees, we all as leaders need to look at ways to attract more people into the game. And a lot has been said about women being those gatekeepers, and not only for themselves individually, but for the family. And, you know, if you can attract that woman into the sport and she sees the value for her children, you know, it's a win-win-win all the way around. And as an organization like mine, I mean, we exist on welcoming women into the game. And, you know, I encourage, you know, your listeners to say, hey, you know, I've always kind of thought about I want to take up the game of golf, but I really haven't known how to get started. And, you know, the LPGA, kudos to them for launching, you know, additional training programs and really, you know, focusing in on how to teach women, because women typically want to learn from a woman. No offense, Ted, but, you know, sometimes there's just like a comfort level there, and I know Cindy, you know, probably has seen it over and over again, but there aren't enough of us to do that. So I think like combining all of our efforts and saying, you know, women, we want you, we invite you. It's that personal invitation to make you feel like you're special. We think you're important. We value you. Please check us out. See what we have to offer you, because you're going to love it.
Absolutely.
You know,
and once they feel safe, you know, and comfortable, and the EWGA does welcome women with open arms and makes them feel safe and comfortable, and that's why people get the bug. And then, you know, as you said, it's a family affair. The whole family can learn to go play golf and have something in its bonding time. And how nice is it to be out there with your kids on the golf course after a busy day at work and just take a chill pill and look at the birds and see the beautiful green grass, and it's great family time.
You know, let me first off say, Pam, you're exactly right. I think women certainly need to feel comfortable, and they're going to be attracted to, you know, more attracted to the sport. And I certainly don't take offense to your comment, because you're exactly right. But let me add this. You know, something that I've really thought about for a very long time, and you know, there's a lot of great efforts within the industry to try and get this to happen, but I truly believe this. You know, they've always tried to, you know, attract more viewers and sponsors and so forth to the LPGA, and tried to build that brand up, if you will, and they've certainly done a fantastic job. But I truly believe this. I think there needs to be a lot more emphasis at the grassroots level through organizations such as yourself, because I think this. I think as more and more women are introduced into the game, because not everybody's going to be an LPGA player. Not everybody's going to get to that level. So to try and focus all of the efforts, and I'm not trying to take away from the LPGA. I think, as I said, they're doing a fantastic job. But the average working woman out there is not ever going to be a tour player. And so it's a very daunting and very overwhelming. So I think really what golf needs to do is say, as we get more women interested into the game, they're going to take an interest in the professionals more and want to watch and want to come out and support the tournaments and that as they get more open and excited about it. And I think sometimes, you know, we in the industry focus the other way around. We focus at the top and figure, okay, if we make it more exciting up here, it's going to attract. But that's not necessarily the case, because people can't always relate to the professionals, just like in the men's. We can't always relate to Tiger Woods or, you know, or some of the ones from past, Jack Nicklaus. It's exciting to watch, but it's not always relatable. So I think what you're doing is really the right way to sort of go about this and just get people involved in the game. And as they become more involved and see how it can benefit their lives, they're going to take an interest, and it's going to ultimately grow the game in that respect. Would you agree with that, you think, Pam?
Yes, and you know, we need more champions within businesses, more female champions within companies to say, hey, you know, golf opened doors for me, and I want to do that for other women in my corporation because I could see the value of it. And we love to go out and talk to companies with women, if it's a lunch and learn or something like that, to say, hey, there's health and wellness benefits to playing the game of golf, to walking. You burn calories. I mean, it's a very comprehensive opportunity when you look at the game of golf. It's not just about, you know, going outside and enjoying the lovely weather. I mean, there's a lot of fringe benefits, if you will, and Cindy knows this very, very well as far as understanding people's personalities. When you go out and you play a round of golf with people, you can decide if you like that person and you want to do business with that person, or you don't. I mean, it's a great character development opportunity, and you get to adjust to many different situations on a golf course, and you can celebrate victories and, try and handle your defeats well because people are watching you and how you handle yourself. There's tremendous opportunities for leadership development within women and even within the EWGA as far as volunteering and looking at running a small business in the community because, in effect, that's what our chapters are. And so from a mentoring perspective, there's tremendous value in the game of golf. And this month is actually EWGA's Mentoring Month, and we're partnered with the First Tee, where we're hosting events in conjunction with them around the country to showcase to young gals involved in the First Tee programs that there are successful women, that there's aspirational goals that they can look forward to, and, hey, they're connecting to the game of golf. How awesome is that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Cindy, let me ask you, because you obviously have had much exposure through the EWGA, and Pam had just mentioned about some of the, if you will, the fringe benefits and that. What are some things from your experience, Cindy, that you've seen working with the EWGA over the years, some of the things that you've seen, some great things come out of it?
Well, I see the welcoming and embracing attitude that they have towards women in learning to play. Because I must tell you that in all the years, and I've been around the game almost my whole life, the country club setting is not very embracing to women. Typically, the private country club women's organizations are very closed group, very cliquish, if you will, whereas and a lot of them, and I'm not trying to put them down, I'm sure there's a lot of great ones, but typically they are not working women and business women, so they don't share in the same challenges, if you will, as a working woman and working mother. So the EWGA is so welcoming because they want to bring in the younger girls and the business women and the up-and-coming executives to teach them how do you balance your work, life, play with your family and be able to achieve and pursue your potential. And so it's kind of like, I don't want to call it a sorority, but it's a business membership where you can feel safe, you can find friends for life, and you can learn how to be a leader and a winner. And so I believe it's a great organization. I really love the book, Teeing Up for Success, that all the members, I think there's 30 members that contributed to the book. I think it's a great thing, and I think the game of golf, as in life, it helps you learn how to achieve and pursue your potential.
Yeah, well said.
And I think, I think today, Ted, in this society that we live in, we're so goal-driven. And, playing golf is one of those goals. But, every time you go out and tee it up, you're going to face situations that you may not have anticipated. And it teaches you to adapt and be flexible. And sometimes you can't take yourself so seriously. And you get to enjoy the game as well.
Yeah, Cindy has mentioned this many times, and I certainly agree, 100%. Golf is meant to be fun, and it is a game. The cold hard truth, it is a game. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at. It's a game. It's meant to be fun and enjoyed. And it does, as we both have said, and Pam, I'm sure you've said it many times, it does mimic life in so many ways. There's a lot of challenge. It's one of the sports, really, in my opinion, and one of the games that closely mimics life more than really any other, because there are so many personal challenges involved in playing golf, and this is what Cindy and I are covering in her series, Own Your Game. We're talking about some of these things. It's not just, everybody focuses on the swing and, how to hit the ball better, and that's certainly important. You have to be able to be a good ball striker, or certainly a decent ball striker, but it's really the inside of a person that's going to dictate whether they're a better player or not. It's how they handle the stress and the emotions and so forth that they're dealing with day to day, whether or not they're going to take that out in the golf course, because that's going to really affect. I mean, anybody can recover from a bad shot physically, but emotionally, that's a whole different kettle of fish. So, there's a lot of things that people can learn from this, and I think it's great. I've played, and I've made no bones about this. I've said this on my other show many times. I've played over the years with a lot of friends, a lot of buddies, and that. And sure, we had some fun, but I'll tell you, some of the best golf that I ever enjoyed playing was with when I got matched up with a group of women. They just had a great time. They had a lot of fun, and that's really what it's all about.
And, the nice thing about golf, and let's just say that you're a busy female professional, and you may not be able to commit to playing week in and week out. But through EWGA, you can do as much as you want or as little as you want and stay connected to this community of women. So if you want to travel to the Solheim Cup in Germany next year and experience what that whole effort is about, it's amazing. You can do that. If you want to go to Coeur d'Alene in September with us for a 3-day event, you can do that if that's a bucket list for you. We were at the U.S. Women's Open in Pinehurst with a small group on a trip. You don't have to do things week in and week out. You can select and choose because we have so many different types of offerings to fit a busy working woman's schedule.
And that's a great idea, and it really kind of gives me a thought. For a lot of women who might be sitting on the fence and not sure or maybe apprehensive, that's really a great way to get your feet wet, if you will, in the golf business, is to take one of these trips and go and experience it. See, with another group of ladies that some may be playing and some may not. But you can have that experience and kind of get your feet wet, see what it's all about, and that's a great way. And at the same time, you get a nice little vacation, along the way. So for somebody that maybe doesn't necessarily play a lot of golf right now, or is kind of, as I said, sitting on the fence, that would be a great way, really, to introduce yourself, to go with an organization such as yourself.
And we plan it for you.
Yeah,
exactly. We plan it. So it's you follow Pam holding the umbrella, It's kind of like, this is what we're doing, and, and that's what people love. Our number one rated benefit across the association is organized, convenient golf.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
I think that says a lot because we're all multitasking and doing so many things to keep our, work-life balance. Those are words that drive me crazy. But all these things that we're trying to maintain. So it's nice to know when you're going to go and do something and participate in an activity, when it's going to start and when it will be over, so that you block out that time.
And that's
right. And Cindy, and Cindy, of course, is fortunate because her husband also is in the golf business, so they have a common interest, which is great, and that I'm sure makes for a lot of good times together, not just from the teaching side of it, but they can play together, they can enjoy it, and I think really it's a sport, if you will, or a game. As more and more women get in, and I know there's a lot of men that might be apprehensive initially, that may not always want to play with their wife and that, but it's a great couples thing as well, because you can take vacations and you now have a common thing, as opposed to just flopping on the beach all the time or running through Disney World. I'm not criticizing Disney World, but and you can get the kids involved. It's something that you can do at all different types of levels. So it's a great family game, if you will, to embrace. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I know traditionally has been, criticized for being that, but there are a lot of ways, a lot of avenues that you can go that it can be very inexpensive and can be a fun family thing to do together. So I think bringing more women into the game bring that family unit even closer together than what it is.
I agree, Ted, because it can span generations. I know when my dad was healthy, we used to love playing golf together. With my husband and I and my brother and now his kids. And it's a fun engagement. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a great player. As I tell women, as long as you're comfortable moving around the golf course, then you're fine. If you know the basic rules of the game, even if you don't feel that you're not the next Michelle Wee, who cares? You need to get out there. You play your game. You're not really playing against anybody else. And as long as you know to keep moving, people will welcome you as a playing partner.
Yeah.
And I want to say this. I think it's really important for women that when they get that skill set, that they let their employer know that they do know how to play golf by putting a little photograph up in their office or their cubicle, or having a little putter, leaning up against the wall someplace, so that it gets the conversation started, because you'll be looked upon differently by your employer. And hey, you may get asked to play in a corporate charity event in your local community, and I think that that's key in increasing your exposure and your worth to your employer.
Absolutely. Pam,
yeah.
I have a question. I see that you're a member of the Golf 2020 Executive Committee. Can you tell us what's going on the committee and what's the future look like for the game?
Well, it's interesting. I participated in the National Golf Foundation Symposium in Philadelphia in May, and there were many research presentations on, marketing to millennials and what are those hot buttons, and women has really been the predominant topic of conversation this year at the Golf 2020 Executive Committee meetings, and we have another meeting coming up at the PGA Championship in Louisville in August. But it really is looking at the image of the game. How does that resonate? The We Are Golf initiative with the National Golf Day that was in Washington this past May, to share with elected officials the impact of the game, the fact that, it employs 2 million individuals across this country on an annual basis. It's an economic engine of the U.S. economy. Most people, when you think about golf, you think of very high-end golf facilities, and you don't necessarily think about the florists and the laundry people and the greenskeepers and all of those subsets that keep the engine going and keep people employed at a variety of pay scales in this industry. So that's an effort that we always look to work on. And the environmental aspects of the game of golf. There's so much work being done on water conservation and reusable water, potable water, and the different types of grasses, brown is the new green kind of thing, because with so much focus on water use in this country, golf is not a guzzler, and that's a misperception that we are all working very hard to change, because open spaces are good for wildlife and habitat, and, where so much building goes up, it's really a good thing to protect some green space in this country. So these are all some of the hot buttons, Cindy, that we discuss at the Golf 2020 meetings. And, of course, with the Olympics being around the corner, that's another way to get the game of golf, the sport of golf, the competitive nature on an international visibility touch point. And I think that'll be great for the game as well. We just have to keep generating the interest, and, you've got these larger cups now that are being trialed at courses. You've got a running game out there and alternative uses at golf courses, because we want to keep these businesses going and flourishing because they keep people employed, and that's very important.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that golf, much like any other industry, has to be willing to change a little bit. That doesn't mean that you have to give up the traditional play, and you can still have the best of both worlds, but it also has to evolve. And I think if it doesn't, and one of the things, and I thought about this when I was at the PGA show this year in January, there were a lot of some interesting booths there, and I'll be honest, most of the booths that I went to that I found the most interesting were the ones that were run by women executives. They just seem to have a lot of creativity. We actually had a guest a few months ago on the show that I actually met down at the show while I was there in January, and she came on and makes head covers and custom designs, and actually Cindy has a set of them. But, one of the things that I have noticed here in recent years, the economy, of course, has been very tough on a lot of people, and industries need to adapt and find new ways of, keeping their, whether the sport or their businesses flourishing. And something that I've thought about for a long time, if you go into a lot of different, and I'm certainly not saying labeling every golf shop, but it's kind of the same old thing, the same old style. And I've noticed that probably 90% of them are being run by men, and that's not to criticize men, but I think that women bring a very unique perspective and a much more creative perspective. And I think that if a lot of these pro shops and that would hire women, not per se as employees to just work in the shop, but actually run them, I think that they would see a bigger change, because as we all know, women certainly are going to buy more than what men do. And if they made them more creative and more interesting, they would get women coming into these places and wanting to engage and purchase some of the products and be involved more in the game. But they can't do that if they're sitting on the sidelines all the time. So this is something that I think the industry really needs to take a look at. Any thoughts from either one of you on that?
Well, one of the other hats that I wear, I guess you could say, is I'm one of the founding members of the National Women's Golf Alliance, meaning EWGA, not really Pam-Swenson. And what we do is we go out and evaluate courses to see how they are rolling out the green carpet to welcome women. And that's a designation that a club can earn, public, private, semi-private, whatever it may be. And one of the areas we look at is amenities. And we look at the pro shop, and we look at the menus in the snack bar or inside the club to see, are you offering healthy options? Are you posting women's activities? When you walk in the pro shop, are you greeted? Is there an ample supply of women's apparel? Is it not just shirts on a rack hidden in the back, but is it a nice display? Because we like to see outfits, head to toe and accessorize. And so, the courses that are doing that and recognize that power of the purse are the ones that are going to succeed.
Yeah,
you have to show that you're welcoming women.
I'm getting at. Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of them are still, and I see that down here in the South a lot. There's not a lot of open-mindedness. Now, there's certainly in certain there are, but that's an area that really needs I hate to say this, but a makeover, because it's the same stuff all the time. And I saw it at the show, same stuff that they've had previous years. I mean, it might have a different label and it might have a slightly different design, but it's essentially the same thing. But there were a lot of great young women entrepreneurs there that were sort of building their own brands, and it was actually interesting. And I got to meet and talk with quite a number of them, and they have a lot of a lot of spunk, if you will, and energy, but they're sort of swimming upstream or against the grain, if you will. So I think that's something the industry also needs to take a look at, and obviously your organization can help do that and are helping to do that. And we appreciate you for doing so, Pam.
Well, I thank you for that, and I applaud you for having a show geared around women in golf, because I think that as female consumers, we want to see role models. We want to see people that maybe we aspire to be like them, whether that's in an entrepreneurial bent or as a designer or in a non-traditional role. And I think the golf industry, as you know, and we've all commented on it, has been very traditional, middle-aged white men for a very, very long time, and that mold is slowly breaking. But in order to be inclusive and diverse, people need to see pictures and involvement of people that are like them. And as a leader in the industry, we're trying very hard to do that, but it's going to take a collective effort, and I agree with you that it has to build from the grassroots up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't, certainly the top. Yeah, the tourists certainly have to do their part. They have to play a role in it as well. I don't mean to take away from that, but what I said earlier, I stand by. I think it has to start from really, not even the fans. It's just got to, women in general have to be engaged, and the only way they're going to feel engaged is by having organizations like the EWG out there, but that are going to embrace them and say, come on, let not just have fun, but we can help you in your business as well by incorporating golf into that network, and you're going to have a much better time. And I think that it's something, the thing that always, and I understand this being a male, I understand that the way things have worked for a long time, but I think in this day and age, when we represent over 50% of the population globally now, to have anything that really sort of leans one way or the other, it just does not make any sense. It really never did, but it more so now. So anything that we can do, and this is why Cindy and I want to do this show, is to engage women, not just in the business, but engage women, outside of the business, to take an interest and say, okay, golf's not just a male-dominated sport, or it's not just for, as you said, middle-aged white men. It's a sport that can be embraced by all, all ethnic groups and all genders, of course. And the only way to do that is for people such as Cindy and I and yourself to, sort of throw ourselves under the bus, if you will, a little bit, and get out there and start talking about it. And we're more than happy to do that. And we're going to start having it, and as the weeks and months progress, we're going to start having some panel discussions, and hopefully we can get you involved as well, and have some serious discussions about some of the things that need to be changed and how we can go about doing it as a group. So, but Pam, we appreciate you. Unfortunately, we've got to wrap up, and I wish we could time, but Pam, we want to thank you for coming on the show today, and we enjoyed having you, and we hope that you'll come back and talk with us real soon.
Well, Cindy and Ted, I would love to, and I just want to close by saying thank you for inviting me. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening out there, come join the EWGA, because you will meet women that have the potential to change your life forever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And can you tell us quickly how the listeners get your book, Teeing Up for Success?
Amazon.com. It's available, and you can check us out on EWGA.com as well.
Thank you, Pam, so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
All right. You have.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Thank you, Pam. Okay, that was our special guest, Pam-Swenson, from the Executive Women's Golf Association. Of course, she's the CEO. And you can certainly visit EWGA.com and learn all about that. And I strongly urge any of our listeners, male or female, that are tuning in, to check it out. I think it's a great organization. We're certainly glad to have her here. And Cindy and I, of course, are always excited to have this opportunity. And we want to thank all of the listeners from all around the world for tuning in every week to the Women of Golf, and it's growing each week, and we appreciate that. We look forward to having you guys join us each Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Women of Golf. Just a quick note before we close off. We're going to take a little hiatus next week. We won't have a show, which I believe is the 22nd, but we will the following, which I'm not sure the date off the top of my head, but we will. So we're taking a little break for some vacation time next week, but Cindy and I will be back with another great segment of Own Your Game series, part 10, I believe, and another great guest. So please join us in a couple of weeks when we come back. And in the meantime, get out there and enjoy this game. And Cindy, you have a safe trip home, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much.
All right.